The economy was deep in debt and in a depression. Colonies were effectively independent, all with different sets of laws, charging duties from other colonies. Britain's navy cut off most foreign trade. A new government structure was needed, whether a reformed Articles of Confederation or a new, more powerful structure. A constitutional convention was proposed and convened at Philadelphia in May 1787. All states except Rhode Island sent delegates, including Washington, Madison, Hamilton, John Adams, Jefferson, Franklin, John Jay, and Patrick Henry. Some of the leaders, like Hamilton, wanted a strong central government, seeing Washington as that strong leader. James Madison's model had a strong legislature, weak executive, checks and balances across branches, and proportional representation, great for the large states. Without consensus, they turned to the Connecticut Compromise: two houses of Congress, two senators each, plus a house based on population. They agreed on a strong executive, with Washington assumed to be that first president. The document was finished on September 15th. Not all the delegates were happy, but states agreed to it. Anti-Federalists opposed it, but 11 of the 13 states' conventions ratified it by July. The Constitution of 1787 created a republic, rule of law, a muscular federal government, and common law traditions. The ability to amend the Constitution meant deficiencies could be fixed. Ben Franklin noted, "The U.S. has a republic if you can keep it." Congress first convened March 4, 1789, in New York, with Washington inaugurated on April 30th. Congress called for a cabinet with Jefferson at State and Hamilton at Treasury. Congress passed a Bill of Rights, checks on the power of the government. Hamilton proposed to pay all debts at face value and establish a central bank using the Necessary and Proper Clause, Article 1, Section 8, for justification. He favored tariffs, customs duties, on foreign goods, which favored manufacturing over agriculture. Customs duties would remain the major federal revenue source until income taxes in the 20th century. Hamilton had his focus on the future, favoring industry and a strong banking system. Jefferson looked backwards, seeing success in agriculture as the future of the country. With blinders firmly in place, he saw a country of yeoman farmers, ignoring plantations with slave labor as the heart of agriculture. Jefferson seemed clueless about banking, and Hamilton's banking system was eliminated after the presidencies of Jefferson and Madison. Ironically, Canada's banking system paralleled Hamilton's vision to great success. Thanks to Lin-Manuel Miranda, Hamilton became a modern hero. Unfortunately, this hothead was killed in a duel. Jefferson and Madison changed the name of their party from Anti-Federalist to Democratic Republican, and this party dominated politics for decades. Why? Most people were farmers, and those that weren't still favored agriculture. Successful manufacturing was decades off and favored the North. Consumers disliked customs duties. It funded the government, but meant higher prices for manufactured goods. Common people did not much care for muscular government, particularly after Washington retired. This was mainly true in the South, fearing strong government would be increasingly anti-slavery. Their voices were enhanced by the 3/5 rule, counting 60% of slaves as part of the population. The Federalists were primarily New Englanders and Democratic Republicans Southerners, with increasing anti-slavery, pro-slavery regional sentiment. The U.S. was marginal from the beginning. Washington's administration kept the country afloat and brought greater economic stability. The presidents following Washington were partisan and seemed to favor disruption. John Adams passed the Alien and Sedition Acts, limiting what could be written against the government, ignoring the First Amendment. Republican newspaper editors found themselves facing jail time. The other issues were an undeclared war on France and hostilities with the Hamilton wing of the Federalists. Adams was not a compromiser. The 1800 election was a political realignment, with Jefferson and the Democratic Republicans firmly in charge and favoring a weak federal government. During his first term, he agreed to the Louisiana Purchase, doubling the size of the country, and realizing being a strong president was okay when you're in charge. Problems arose in his second term as he imposed the Embargo Act in 1807, which cut off trade with the rest of the world. This was particularly detrimental to the northern states, which emphasized trade both foreign and domestic. The economic result was the Depression of 1807. Not to be outdone, Madison declared war on Britain and closed the country's central bank just when it was most needed. The most embarrassing act was fleeing Washington just before the British took it and burned the White House. Then the long depression that started in 1815. Following Jefferson's lead, the government took millions of acres of land from the indigenous tribes. Like both Washington and Jefferson, after his presidency, he returned to his plantations with its hundreds of slaves. The first American factory was built in Rhode Island in 1790, following the lead of Britain. To understand the Industrial Revolution, we return to Enlightenment Europe on the road to industrialization, next time on Food History and Mystery.